Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Minh Chau from School the Metropolis, and to start off this talk, I'm actually going to read your mind. Now, I know it sounds a little unusual, but trust me, what I'd like you to do is to think of an electric fan. All right? So, I know most of you would have thought of this fan. Right? Raise your hands if you thought of it. Okay, but there is also this fan that I know most of you would not think of. Yeah, this is an actual fan. And my point from this experience is not to test how much you know about fans. And plus, I'm not going to be here to talk about them either. My point from this is that sometimes in life, when it gives you lemon, you gotta turn it into lemonade. Take it as simple as a test that you didn't study for. Life has the same effect. And this has a lot to do with leadership, when you have to creatively come up with new solutions to problems that are going to come sooner or later. This might seem a bit overwhelming at first, to say that it has a lot to do with leadership, and it feels like ordinary people like me and you cannot lead. But I know a word that is specifically designed to do this, and that is the word why. So, what is so important about this word? It only consists of 3 letters. And why am I standing here on the stage talking to you about it? Well, without this word, there wouldn't be many inventions or discoveries being made. How do you think Newton found out about gravity? Well, when the apple fell on his head, he asked why it fell on his head, not just flow into midair. And that's how we know about gravity today. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's Newton. He's a scientist. He obviously knows what he's doing. But the funny thing is that you do not need to be like a scientist like Newton, or have a degree, or go to Harvard or something like that. But what you do need is to ask the right questions. And why have you to do so? I remember a few months ago, just laying on the couch, watching a TV show where it talked about this man called Pham. And he was no scientist. He was just a poor farmer in his 40s. But the thing is that he invented dozens of machines to help with agriculture and sent them to other farmers in his area. And the best part is, ladies and gentlemen, his inventions were bought by companies all around the world. So some of you might be thinking, well, I'm clearly not an inventor. Therefore, the word why is simply not for me. And I feel you, because I'm not a scientist or an inventor myself. You don't need to come up with really big machines or to solve really big world problems. You can start with the smallest ones that we face every single day. How many of you have been in this situation where you're trying to take a selfie, right? You take out your phone, and one thing that you know for sure is that your arm is not 20 meters long. So you take out your phone and realize that the selfie that you just taken can only capture a part of your face, not the scenery behind you. This used to happen to me quite a lot, and I used to complain about it. The same thing happened to the Japanese people, but instead of complaining like the way I did, they came up with an amazing machine. Well, a selfie stick, which now can help us to take flawless selfies. Well, also depends on our skills. Now I'd like you to show you some pictures, just to emphasize how important this word is. Here is the Changi Airport, the national airport of Singapore, and here. This might look like a bit like a resort or something, but this is actually a landfill in Singapore. What do these 2 places have in common, you might ask? Well, it all started with the word why. Why do airports have to be such a boring place? Because when I think of an airport, I usually think of a typical dull, bland place where we have to sit there for hours just to get on a flight. And when I think of a landfill, I think of, again, a a place where trash have to sit there for centuries just to break down and decompose. And I know you think the same thing as well. But the Singaporeans thought differently. Why does trash have to sit there around for centuries just to break down? And why do airports have to be so boring? So they came up with these new inventions that I'm sure will change the reality of what we see things as. Oh, and speaking of reality, I've come to a realization that since I'm in middle school now, I will have to do a lot more work than when I did in elementary school. And I will continue to do a lot more work when I reach high school and college. And this is another time when Y comes in to help us. And that is to avoid logical fallacies. Now, what are fallacies made of, you might ask? They're basically assumptions or stereotypes about things. And, when we are researching for our projects, it might be individual work or group work. It's pretty much inevitable. But we can end up on some sites which are biased or just inaccurate. And that's also called stereotypes or assumptions. And we'll actually take a look at one, which, as an Asian person, I get quite a lot. And that is, all Asians are good at math. What is wrong with this one, you might ask? How many of us have seen these TV shows where there are kids who are not even old enough to drive a car that solve really hard math problems that an average person will not be able to solve? And most of the time, they're Asian people. So, what is wrong with this one? Well, if we use the word why to go deeper into the situation, like, why are Asian people good at math? Is there some kind of genetic material that makes them good at it? You can do a quick little Google search or ask a friend next to you whether they think this is true or not. Well, I'm actually going to save you some time and tell you that this one is in fact not true, because I'm one of those Asians that do not understand math at all. And that's how the word why helps us to avoid fallacies and stereotypes. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, other WH questions also give an insight on the situation, so why make a whole speech just on the word why? And my answer would be yes, they do give an insight on the situation. I mean, that's their purpose after all. But no, because why goes above and beyond that. And I'll show you why. Take a look at the Mona Lisa, which I know we've all heard of. If we use other WH questions, we can come up with questions like, when was this painted? Who is the author of the Mona Lisa? Things like that, because it surrounds the topic Mona Lisa. But, like I said, the word why goes above and beyond that. We can come up with questions like, why is this considered art among many? Or why should we appreciate the Mona Lisa? Things like that. And I'm sure with your help, we can come up with more. The word why, not only does it give information about the past, the present, but also a teeny tiny bit of the future. And that's what makes it stand out, in my opinion. Story time. So, as I was doing this, another question popped up in my mind. Is that, if the word why is so important, then why aren't we taught to use it at schools? And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this way. It feels like these days, schools are more focused on what we should think, not how we should think, regarding the fact that why is an extremely powerful word. At school, I feel like we are fed knowledge and facts that are just thrown in our heads, and that's what we are tested on, our memorization. And it feels like we are being taught to compete with a robot, which, as we know, can do a much better job at memorizing dots than we do. Like I said, robots can memorize as many dots as we want because we can always code them. But our job as human beings is to connect those dots. And that is something that schools do not teach. However, this information isn't supposed to make you hate school. It's not supposed to make you not want to go to school. Because recently, I found out that some students have been using the information from notebooks to bring it into real life. Like this student from Vin School. He used the basic information from 6th and 7th grade physics to come up with an automatic, environmental-friendly trash can. And he's not the only one. Other Vincers have created like an educational app for little kids to understand about climate change, or a machine that waters plants automatically. And this is all great news. I strongly believe if a school can teach its students to ask why and encourages their creativity, then that school will have a bright future. Now, I know some of you are maybe feeling convinced by the speech, or some of you are not feeling convinced by the speech. And that's all right, because I'm sure this one you can relate to. How many of you make decisions? Now, I'm not talking super big decisions, but start with the small ones, like should I eat rice for lunch or pasta for lunch? And I've come to a conclusion that our lives are filled with decisions, and we make them every day without even realizing it. The decisions that we make really shape the person that we end up being, and the path we choose. I don't know about you, but personally, I do not believe in fate or destiny for the same reason. And the word why will help us to make the decisions that we are happy with. I remember a few months ago when I first started signing up for TED and started structuring my speech. I highly doubted myself on this one, especially when I saw on TV the people who joined TED were much better than me. And I constantly thought of giving up. But if I had given up at the beginning, I would not be here, standing on the stage, talking to you, dear audiences. And that's what makes it important. That's what matters. So if there's one thing that I'd like you to take home from this entire speech, is that before you decide on giving up on something, think of why you started doing that in the first place. That will make you to not give up easily. And maybe you will keep pushing forward and keep doing the things that you are doing. So let's go back to the topic, learn to lead. What does why have to do with this? Well, not only does it make us better leaders by changing our perceptions and other perceptions as well, and coming up with new ideas to creatively solve new problems that are going to come, it also makes us better followers too. Now, what does this have to do with leadership? Because at first it sounds like it has nothing to do with it. But it does. We should not blindly trust world leaders, but instead ask why. So then we can lead others to the same things that we did, or to not do the same things that we did. And that's also called leadership. A leader doesn't need to be a CEO of something. It can be you, it can be me, it can be anybody. And that's what makes it special. And I'm sure with the word why's help, we can be better leaders and also better followers. Thank you.